What's going on, everybody? Today, I'm going to do a PowerPoint slide over trading psychology and basically how this affects your trading and how you can basically improve your trading psychology through some of the systems that I'm going to show today. Majority of the content here today is going to be from the book, The Mental Game of Trading. The author is TENDLER. All of the content in here is from basically all my notes that I took throughout the book. I have like a 50-page Google Doc over the book. So these are my main takeaways. By no means is this even going to scratch the surface of what the book really includes. And I highly suggest you go pick up that book right now because it will change your trading psychology tenfold. If you're struggling with it, I highly suggest that you go pick up that book. But let's get into the first PowerPoint slide. So the preface, emotions are not the problem. You hear a lot of people say to be emotionless, to not pay attention to your emotions. And I think that's completely wrong. I used to have this kind of mindset as well. But the main problem here is your failure to see your emotions rising in real time. Your emotions are the signal to the underlying problem. Okay, controlling your emotions is not the solution, and we strive for finding resolution to the underlying problems that make emotions arise within you. So what this is saying here is your emotions are the signal to what is underlying underneath that emotion. I don't want to go too much into it because the next PowerPoint slide will kind of give you context. So recognition. The first step to fixing your mental game is recognition. You need to map the patterns that happen with your emotional outburst. So you need to study yourself and figure out what patterns repeat when you have an emotional outburst. For an example, when you've taken a loss, what is your first reaction? Are you leaning forward? Are you swearing, complaining, body temperature rising, sweating? You need to figure out what specific thoughts, actions, and decisions are triggered when your emotional outbursts happen. Be a detective. Be eager to find out what your own patterns are. So for me, when I was first going through this book, I was trying to figure out what exactly was happening before I would tilt, before I'd FOMO, before, greed, confidence. So I'd have a notebook right next to me, and I'd also be recording my trading sessions, and I'd be figuring out what exactly was I what was I doing, because even then I had no recognition. Like when I had myself on camera, I started to like look back at my videos of me when I was starting to tilt. I'd start leaning forward, my hands were sweating, I would start complaining, I'd be like, fuck this, I don't understand it, I don't get it. And all these little patterns, and they're going to be different for everybody. Like your feet, what you're doing, all these little things that you do are all little patterns that you need to start recognizing, because if you can start recognizing it, you can stop it before it happens. Now, this will give you some type of placebo effect, because you think that once you figured out your pattern, you figured out, okay, now I can stop it. That's only one part of this whole thing, because if you think that just recognizing your pattern is enough, you're going to find out very soon that that's completely wrong. And don't get me wrong, when I first read the book, even Jared said you're going to have this placebo effect and think that just because you figured out your own pattern, that you're going to have basically overconfidence. Now, going into the next slide, this is the main thing here. So finding out the root cause as to why your emotional outbursts are happening. So the next step to help you find resolution to your issues is finding out exactly why these issues are coming up in your trading. Having a map of your emotional outbursts is not enough. You need to dive deep into your personal flaws to figure out what false biases, illusions is hijacking your thinking. If you don't do these next steps, your map will create a false sense that you have came to a resolution when in fact that is false. So what this is saying is you need to go deep into why you hate to lose, why you hate making mistakes, why you're FOMOing, why you're having overconfidence. And these next slides will basically lay that out for you. But like I said, if you don't go into this, you don't need to go into your childhood or, anything that may be a issue to some of your emotional problems in trading. But To be honest, it's probably not. It's probably a few simple things that you're not really even aware of. And that was the thing, was Jared made me aware of these false biases and illusions. So let's go into the next slide here. Emotions. There's a short list of emotions that traders frequently encounter over the course of their careers: tilt, greed, fear, and confidence. Now, there is more emotions, so like discipline, it's not emotion, but discipline, intuition. There's some other things out there that you can work on, but I think these are the main four that really affect majority of traders. So some of these emotions are actually caused by another emotion, which is a paradox. For an example, greed could be caused by your overconfidence in your analysis, and you don't have a realistic idea of what your system produces. So let's go into greed. The solution isn't to be less greedy. That's like saying to be less ambitious. And this quote in his book really stood out to me, because I always thought that being greedy was, me always wanting to have more money, but in reality, it was just me being overconfident. So most of the roots of greed actually reside inside of fear, anger, overconfidence, or low confidence. Overconfidence is a fucking mentality, blind to risk into your system. Lack of confidence can cause greed as well, due to not feeling satisfied with your profits, feeling like nothing is ever good enough for you. Greed is the emotion where your ambition becomes too excessive. So you need to figure out exactly when your greed becomes too excessive. Note down your specific emotions, thoughts, and actions when this emotion acts out. So going back to having a notebook, or even recording yourself, or even after the trading session, start to look back on, okay, what was I doing before this action played out? Was I tapping my hands? Was I tapping my pen? Was I biting my fingernails? Was I sweating? Was I doing et cetera, et cetera? Because once you start to figure out that little pattern, then you can start to recognize, okay, now I can see the build up to that emotion. Emotions don't just come out of nowhere. There's always some type of build up to that emotional outburst. So once you can start figuring out that pattern, and then you can dig into the root cause of that emotion and why is that acting out. So going into the next slide, fear. Fear takes your ability to assess risk, think, decide, and it turns it against you. So there's four common signs of fear in trading. There's fear of missing out, fear of losing, fear of mistakes, and fear of failure. So for fear of losing, what does a loss represent to you? Is it more than just money? The money also represents something else in line. Is it confidence, discipline, status, utility of money, unrealized lifestyle? So when I first read this chapter, it really started to click a lot of things in my mind, because I used to be so fearful of losing, because I thought it was just because of the money, the P&L, the numbers on the screen. But in reality, the fear of losing is the, fear of losing your own confidence, the fear of, not being disciplined, status. If you have a, social media and you want to always look good for other people or your family members or your friends, this is the utility of money. Maybe you have to pay bills that month or that week, that day. And just because you lost, now, you know, the utility of money is not what it used to be. Unrealized lifestyle. You know, this can go into hating mistakes. I'll tap into that in tilt. So once you understand what's on the line for you, then you can begin to understand why you overreact to losses. This is the false bias illusion that has a hold of you. So do you start to understand that it's not necessarily figuring out your pattern to the emotion, it's figuring out what is the root cause of it. And again, this PowerPoint slide is going to do no justice to the book, but because each of these can be broken down into so many different little layers. But for fear of losing, what exactly does money represent to you? What does a loss represent to you? And once you can kind of have that awareness around it, it can start to maybe help you figure out, okay, I don't like losing because I don't want to look bad in front of my, my peers or on social media. And it kind of help loosen up a few things for you. So going into tilt, this is, for me personally, the biggest problem, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, Tilt is hands down probably the number one thing that causes traders to basically lose and be unsuccessful in trading. So anger is the signal, not the real problem. And I keep talking about this. Emotions are not the problem. It's the signal to the problem. Anger is produced when underlying flaws, biases, and illusions conflict with reality. So you're probably fighting to prevent the flaw from causing you to overreact to a loss. Okay, so 5 common signs is hating to lose, mistake tilt, injustice tilt, revenge trading, and entitlement tilt. So I'll cover 3 here. Hating to lose. You need to figure out exactly why you hate to lose. Is it the feeling? Are you too competitive? Is it variance? Is it money? Now, for me personally, hating to lose was something I really had to come to terms with myself. So hating to lose also kind of goes into the fear of losing for me, because I hated to lose because I hated that I didn't want to look bad in front of my peers. I didn't want to have to tell my friends, my family, you know, if I did bad that week or that month. I didn't want to have to tell them that. I also hated the feeling. I don't think anybody likes to lose. I'm also extremely competitive. I want to win at everything and I never want to lose. And I'm sure a lot of majority of traders or entrepreneurs are the same way. And again, variance, this was another thing for me as well. I think that was the biggest clicking point for me for hating to lose was variance. Because once I started to understand that no matter what throughout my entire career of trading, variance is always going to be there. So variance is just a set of probabilities that it's going to play out over time. And you see that with your technical model, that your system is going to produce a certain amount of wins and it's going to produce a certain amount of losses. And once you can come to terms with variance and you can have a really good relationship with variance, your whole trading will change. Okay, so the next one is mistake tilt. Identify why mistakes make you so angry. Do you expect perfection every single time? Does it feel like you lost time and hard work? Do you care what others think about you when you make mistakes? And all of these click yes for me, because when I would trade, I would expect perfection every single time. I would never think I was going to lose. And that's a terrible mindset to have. And even when I lost, I felt like I lost out on time and all this hard work. And even if you're doing, I'll tap into it on a later portion of this PowerPoint, your pre-market routine, if you're going to the gym before, if you're doing all these things before you trade and then you lose, it feels like you did all that for nothing. And then, you're angry because of that. So that's mistake tilt. Injustice tilt, this was something I battled with as well. So this is primarily due to your relationship with luck. You believe you aren't as lucky as other traders, that the market is out to get you. To counter this, start journaling when you get lucky in the market. There's plenty of times where you exit at the perfect time, you get into the perfect spot. Understand it's not your relationship to luck, it's your relationship to variance in the market. Get a better relationship with variance. And to me, that really hits home because um, when you're on social media, you see a lot of other traders either winning, they're getting funded, and maybe you're losing a lot and you start to feel like, man, I'm just not lucky. I can't get lucky in these markets. And the reasoning behind that is because you're not journaling when you do get lucky. People don't want to put their ego aside and be like, you know what, I got lucky in these markets today. As much as that hurts for somebody even like me that quote unquote knows the algorithm or studies ICT, it's like, yeah, man, I know all these technicals. I know exactly how to trade. Nothing is luck. You know what? At some point, there is luck in these markets. I've had plenty of times where I exit at the perfect time, the price reverses, I enter, perfectly with zero drawdown. I move my stops to break even at the perfect time. And I'm sure that's happened to you as well. So start to journal this, because once you start to recognize that, it can help counter when you feel like you're unlucky. When you're losing and you see other traders be like, you know what, man, I got in at the perfect time, last week. I exited at the perfect time last week. That was a little bit of luck. I'm not going to lie. So once you start to have a little bit better relationship with that, it can really, really help you. Going to the next PowerPoint slide, confidence. Confidence is a feeling which reflects the coherence of the information and the cognitive ease of processing it. Most traders struggle with overconfidence or low confidence, and their emotions ride the waves of high and low of their P&L. So that was something that really hit home for me as well. You need to anchor it to something more solid, such as your execution of your plan and your preparation. So common signs of overconfidence is quickly convicted on a particular trade, quickly making decisions because it feels like you can't lose, neglecting valuable pieces of information of your system, less rigorous in your preparation and your execution. Common signs of low confidence is overly focused on P&L, uninterested in making excuses not to trade or find opportunities, feeling like previous success means nothing, thinking you've lost it and can no longer perform up to your prior standard. So the main takeaway for me, and confidence is such a deep subject that kind of ties into all the other emotions, but I kind of wanted to just make bullet points of what I found the most useful. Having stable confidence. So if you look at the bottom there, is the middle ground between overconfidence and low confidence. And what that means is you're attaching your confidence not to your P&L, not to how well you did that day in terms of money, but how well did you execute your strategy and the preparation that went into it. So for an example, let's say you waited for the perfect setup, you set your limit, you followed all your criteria for the day for your strategy, and you end up losing. That is stable confidence. That's understanding that I followed my system, I did exactly what I was supposed to do, and that shouldn't affect whether I feel good or I feel bad because I lost. It's feeling good because you know you followed your own system. You followed exactly what you're supposed to do and you executed it perfectly. That is having stable confidence. Okay, so going to the next slide here, injecting logic. Once you figure out what is the root cause of your issues, you can start to implement injecting logic. So these will be like a safety net for yourself. And I have these right next to myself on a little clipboard here. And I'll go over it on a next slide here. I even go over these on my pre-market routines. So creating phases that help you understand the underlying flaws, biases, and illusions that are behind your emotions. In the moment of seeing the emotion rise, repeat these phrases until the emotion de-escalates. So once you start to find the pattern, and once you start to figure out what the root cause is, then you can start injecting these logic statements in that moment. And these injecting logic statements need to be particularly your injecting logic. They need to hit home with you and sit right with you in the moment. So for an example with mistake tilt, hating mistakes is like hating to learn. If I actually learn from it, the money is an investment into developing a bigger edge. So when you make a mistake and you feel yourself starting to tilt, repeat these phrases. And again, this is just a generic statement. Make it personalized, make it for yourself. So you can repeat this to yourself over and over and over again while you feel yourself, wanting to tilt because of a mistake. Unrealized profits, this is my own personal one that I really, really, really love. Those profits are not yours until they are in your bank account and being spent somewhere. So you can see a lot of times when you're up on a position, you really want to close the trade. You want to, take partials. And I take partials only because it's my strategy, not because it's a fear of losing the unrealized profits. And actually, unrealized profits, funny enough, the reasoning behind you wanting to close a position so early is not because of even really the profits. It's because you want to stop the feeling of uncertainty. Does that make sense? It's pretty profound because you want to stop the feeling of either risk or uncertainty, of worry. You want to stop that immediately. You want to stop it as fast as you can. So what I would recommend is finding out an injecting logic statement that really hits home with you. And while you're in position and you can feel yourself wanting to close out that position, keep injecting this logic into your mind over and over and over again until it becomes second nature and you find that resolution at one point where these emotions no longer affect you. So lacking confidence, I spent thousands of hours on this plan. Am I really going to let one trade change it? Hating to lose, understand variance is a part of this game. Trust your system to turn over profits in the long term, not the short term. So for me, hating to lose, it really has to do with variance. And I've gained an amazing relationship with variance because after I figured out I hated to lose because I hated variance. I hated that the market dishes out losses and wins. But once I understood, okay, my system produces more wins than losses. I'm going to have to suck it up, even though everybody's going to hate to lose. You're never going to come to a point where, like, yeah, man, I love losing. Like, that doesn't happen. He states in the book that you're like a boxer that hasn't learned how to take a punch yet. You need to learn how to take that loss a little bit better every single time. Just suck a little bit less than you did last time. That's the main theme of the book, is just sucking a little bit less and figuring out, what can help you in those moments when you really feel heated. And to go off of injecting logic, sometimes this isn't even enough. Um, Even knowing your pattern isn't enough. Injecting logic isn't enough. For me, if I can really feel the emotion, and sometimes you can't catch it. Sometimes it's like you're in a dream. Like if any of you have blown accounts, you literally like walk away from the charts a few hours later. You're like, who was I? What was I doing in that moment? And that's because your emotions will hijack your logical thinking. So to basically, the last resort for me is to hit the power button on my computer and just walk away. And that takes a lot of willpower and discipline to do if I really feel like I'm just not stable right now. And it helps to, like I said, record yourself, because you can start to talk yourself through it and basically record yourself in real time. Like, okay, I'm feeling these emotions a lot right now. I need to get off these charts. I need to get away from it. And that way you could protect yourself, because you're the only person that's going to be able to save your account. Nobody's here to help you. Nobody's going to save that account. You're the one pushing the buttons. So you need to be in full control of what is happening in your trading. Next PowerPoint slide is pre-market routines. If you plan on trading for a profession, you need to have a pre-market routine. You need to. In every sport, the players warm up before going out performing. So basketball, football, soccer, tennis, you name it. Every player was always warming up. They're stretching, they're running routes, they're, dribbling, they were, shooting baskets. So they're always warming up. And it should be the same for you with trading. It's a sport. You need to review your injecting logic, your patterns. You need to review, the root causes. So the false biases, the flaws, the illusions that are behind your emotions, why that's acting out, reviewing your technical plan, reviewing your risk management, your money management, recording how you're feeling coming into the trading session, or even just journaling it, and then record yourself while you're trading. Another thing I would like to add to this is maybe some breathing exercises. So Wim Hof, meditation, even, working out before trading can help you. Watch your caffeine consumption, because if you're consuming way too much caffeine, you can be way too jittery. So there's a lot of like even personal life matters that play into trading. Like if you're not consistently working out, if your diet's not on point, if your, day-to-day life is, super chaotic, if your relationships are not good, there's so much to trading psychology that blends into it. It's hard to even put it into one video. I mean, I could spend hours talking about psychology because of how many layers go into it. And I don't think many people really realize this. I think it's just, you pushing buttons, but in reality, so many different things play into it. So really look over your life, figure out in your personal life how you can make your life a little bit more calm. Figure out what will make you more calm before a trading session. And I think that will really, really help you. Pre-market routines are a must. If you don't do them, it's a tenfold difference. I see it all the time. In my personal experience, like there'll be times when I do my pre-market routines and my trading is exceptional that day. And then there's other times when I don't do my pre-market routines and my emotions are off the wall. So I highly recommend, if you're not doing this, please do it. Next up is your personal journal. So you need to have a journal that help you see and understand the reasoning behind your patterns. So whether that's technically, why am I winning on these trades? Is it due to I'm not following my technical rules, or is it because I'm not following, my psychology, injecting statements and etc. So you need to be journaling every single day. You need to journal your wins, your losses, especially your losses. You need to journal your emotional patterns. Journal why you made certain mistakes and how to correct them. Your trading journal needs to be organized and easily accessible. This will be the pillar to your success as a trader. So I posted this on my community tab a few days ago or last week. This is my personal, nobody's in it, it's just me, my Discord server, where I have all the things that I believe help me. So you can look on the right there. I have my overall model. I have model examples. I have money management. I have a just personal journal reports. So I report price every single day, news drivers, winning trades, losing trades, my daily schedule, uh, weekly performance improvements, prediction coming into the week, weekend reviews. I have on the bottom there, mental game of trading. I have a tilt profile, fear profile, confidence profile. There's ABC daily logs, which I'm not able to basically get into that over this PowerPoint. That's really in the book that you're going to have to read this. So a couple journaling options is Discord, Notion, Telegram, Edgewonk. I used for a little bit. It's pretty good, but that does cost money. So everything's free besides Edgewonk. You can use all of these at your own, however you'd like to set up your own journal. Whatever's easiest for you guys. You don't need to have as many, tabs, or maybe you need more. Whatever really is easiest for you and helps you journal. And this really comes down to discipline. Most people ask about journaling, like, how do I journal? How do I do this? Journaling is not rocket science, people. It's not. It's your discipline to not wanting to do it. You don't want to journal because you don't want to figure out what's really going wrong. You only want to journal when you win. You only want to journal when things are going right for you. But when you're losing, you don't put in your losing trades. And I'm guilty of this too. That's the only reason why I'm saying it. Because I find myself when I'm winning, oh, sure, I'll go ahead and enter in what I did right this day. When I lose, no, I don't want to look that way. So if you're asking about journaling, it's super simple. You figure out what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong and keeping track of that. If you think you don't need this, then you don't really want this bad enough, because I've figured out so much throughout my personal journal about all the flaws, all the things I'm doing right, all the things I'm doing wrong. And it's just cool to look back on over years. It's the reason why I started the daily logs on my YouTube channel, because one day I'm going to be able to look back and see all of the videos that I've done. And it's just a record for me to go back and be like, okay, this is what I was thinking. This is where I was at my development. And it's cool to see your progression over the years. I wish I would have started my Discord. I started this last year. I wish I would have started this years ago. I've always had like little Telegram chats that I've put stuff in, but I've never really made a perfect Discord like journal for myself, which I'm very happy with this. I highly recommend you do that as well. So let's go to the next slide here. Now this will tie everything together, and you can find this video on YouTube. It's ICT's Money Management. That's the title of it. So understanding that as a trader, you're simply a money manager. Your risk management, money management, however you want to put it. Your job is to manage risk and profit to the best of your abilities. Your job is to keep your equity curve smooth. There should be no huge spikes and dips in your equity curve. So if you see somebody's equity curve going really high and then really low and then really high and then really low and then lower low, that's not good money management. These people are over leveraging, they're revenge trading, they're doing all sorts of things, and that's not how trading should be. Your job should be to flatline your equity curve and to stop the bleeding as much as possible. So what the system will do, ICT explains, every trader will encounter a loss. So simple system. For me, risk management, I'm always risking 1% or even less than that. Especially when you get to 100,000, 200,000, etc. 1%, you can still make more than what most people ever make in their job for a week, 2 weeks, a month. So stop looking at other traders and thinking that you need to basically over leverage to try to get to that point. So a starting system is to start your risk at 1%. After you take in your first loss, reduce your risk to 0.5 risk. Now let's say you took another loss. You reduce that risk to 0.25%, and you keep that risk until your previous loss or losses have been recovered, and then you can increase your risk back to the baseline of 1% and keep that risk until a loss is taken, or even after a series of wins. Let's say you've had 5 wins in a row, then you reduce your risk back down again because you're on that point of basically overconfidence and greed. And if you're on a 5-win streak, you want to reduce your risk because you know more than likely you're going to encounter a loss sooner or later. So you can see here in this, I just took this off his YouTube video. He had a starting balance of 5K, and he started his leverage with, I believe, just a 1%. And he was taking 1%, 1%, 1%, 1%. And then he finally made back 3 losses, kept the risk. And he'll explain this. I don't want to go too much into this, but it's a really, really good video. It really changed my mindset on money management and risk management because I wasn't aware of it. I was always keeping either a 1% risk or 2% risk, and I was basically at break even. And I didn't understand why, because I was not stopping the bleeding. You know, I would always just keep the same risk and think that my RR would, obviously unfold over time, but sometimes that's not the case. Okay, and closing statements here. So these are the sources, extra information. So all the credits basically from this PowerPoint slide go to Jared Tindler, Mental Game of Trading, the author, and then ICT. Other sources that I recommend and I've read are Trading in the Zone by Mark Douglas, Trading for a Living, The Essence of Trading Psychology, and then The Disciplined Trader, again by Mark Douglas. All of these are amazing sources that I highly recommend you go over. Like I said, definitely pick up the book Mental Game Trading. You're not going to regret it. It's going to be the best $30 you ever spent in your life if you plan on making trading a profession and your career. So I hope this has helped in some way. Appreciate you guys. Leave a comment and like below.